Okay. I'm hoping that this is on. I'm looking at a different screen. I don't know why it's a different screen, but Sandman made a video, um, and the title is, it says Sandman chats with Cat the Vat, largest trans maxing channel on YouTube. He literally, his channel is trans maxing. So, fair use, I want to critique what is being said because some of the things that are being said on here are extremely strange. They're very weird. Okay. And I want to critique it. Let me turn my camera off. All right. Let's play some. Let me roll it back.
Now there's the jazzerciser is really big.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Hold on.
Yeah. If we're assigning labels to you on how you can function as a person, there's like expectations. So if I say you're a man, and I'm really leaning into traditionalism here, so don't sue me, bro. But like okay. If I say you're a man, I'm gonna be like, oh, you're supposed to be a provider and caring and like strong and all these things. And then if I say you're a woman, I'm gonna be like, oh, you're like a provider to children and the man, and like you're good at housework and you like all these other like stereotypical things. Gender. But then if I just say you're a person, there's different expectations for you as a person. So just to like link this to pronouns, if I say you're a he, him, you're expected to do the man pronoun stuff or man gender stuff. If I say you're a she, her, you're expected to do woman gender stuff. But if I say you're a they, them, you're just a person. You're like, I don't want to say you're a blank slate, but there's less expectations. And I feel like, at least me personally, I like they and them because it makes me feel like I am not being looked at as a caricature. I'm being looked at as an actual person for who I am. But even though the caricature people look at me at is probably just like a they, them instead of, it's just a different.
Okay, so this is a person that Sandman is speaking to that claims now he is transgender. Now, the thing I would like to know, because part of what was said in a lot of this live stream was Sandman got on the topic of a man who raped 2 women. And when he got sentenced, he was a man before he got sentenced. But as soon as he got sentenced and knew he was going to do time, he claimed he was a transgender woman. Okay. Now, this is a person that had never, said they were transgender before. And then once they were sentenced for raping, and I'm going to use the word rape because that's what happened, 2 women, he was sentenced and put in a women's prison facility. How is that possible? How is that allowable? So let me continue. Oh, it went blank. Hold on 1 second. So this person that Sandman is speaking to claims to be transgender. However, I'd like to know, did that person feel they were transgender when they were young or when they were in their early 20s? Or is this just the grift that a lot of dudes in the manosphere, it seems like, because a lot of them that we're hearing about, they have the same kind of viewpoints as the manosphere, as Red Pill, and now they're claiming to be women, but yet don't transition. They don't do the surgery. They don't do anything. And they're claiming that they are. Come on, let's continue.
But that's the thing. Like, okay, so I think that's really interesting because then nobody has with expected gender norms. Like people expect you to behave one way or the other. And we were talking about this before because in my childhood, sometimes I would act in a very masculine way and sometimes I would act in a very feminine way. And when I was acting in a masculine way, I got validation and no criticism and everything was good. And then the moment I veered off and was interested in poetry and art and music, all of a sudden, people would just kind of like, but why are you, you must be gay. Like, why are you interested in those things? Or why are you dressing outside of the normal male dress code of gray, brown, and black? Right. And so that was kind of something that threw people off. They couldn't really figure it out. And, we spoke about
So that was Sandman. And I just want to say this. No matter what gender you are, and there's only two genders, there's male and female. But within those two genders, we have a mother and a father that created to make who we are. So it would go to tell or go to say that, of course, each man and woman is going to have, if they're a balanced human being, they're going to have the ability to take and draw from the masculine of creation and the feminine of creation. So if artwork and doing art and stuff is supposed to be a feminine trait, which I don't really see as being innately feminine, I just, but needless to say, everybody has male and female characteristics in their makeup, genetic makeup, because you come from a mother and a father. I mean, that's very plain and simple. But you're still one gender or the other. Okay, let's continue. Ah, damn it. Every time I take a break like that, then I have to go log back in.
And I realized, I've got masculine and feminine tendencies, and I'm perfectly fine expressing either of those, and I don't care what society thinks. But you think that, like, you don't want to, maybe you don't want to express either of them, or you're just more comfortable just avoiding both of them and thinking that they're both constructs that are designed to control you. I don't know. So, like, what do you think?
Kind of. I feel very constricted by he and him, for sure. Because I don't know if we talked about this at all, but like for most of my life, I was perceived to be a guy. I was held to the expectations of being a guy. And I really didn't like being held to the expectations, because at the end of the day, I'm just a person. I just want to be a person. So I think that I personally really don't like he and him, because I was so stuck with it for my whole life. I think if I hadn't been so pressured into it, maybe I would have a better relationship with those pronouns. But I couldn't tell you that for sure. She and her, I like she and her because it means that people don't see me as he and him. But I don't really like the way that a lot of people look at women subconsciously.
Like in terms of like sexualization, in terms of like,
yeah, when women are like sexualized, a lot of the times women are treated as less intelligent, or like just the blame. Like earlier, for example, I was having a discussion. Somebody was trying to justify women that walk late at night. Like they deserve to be raped or something because they put themselves in a dangerous situation. And like, I feel like things like that are more common to women because it's like, oh, well, you just shouldn't have been there, than it is to men, because men are just assumed to be like, oh, it's fine that you're there. Like, but anyway,
but men are just more the victims of non-sexual violence in dark alleyways and stuff like that. So, that's statistically they've proven that. So men are more likely to be assaulted in public than women are.
Well, I mean, realistically speaking, trans people are more likely cis people.
Oh Lord. Listen. It doesn't matter what gender you are. You will get violated if the person that is trying to prey upon you thinks you're weaker than them, because that's the whole point, that what they're trying to do, whether it's robbing you, stealing from you, violating you, beating you up, or whatever the case may be, is because they feel that it's a power play. So earlier in this discussion, Sandman was talking about that rape thing, and he thinks it's about sexuality. He thinks it's about red pill or incel men not getting sex and them wanting to take it, when really it's just a power struggle. It's not about the actual sex. It's about the power. I don't know where where don't these, I know that they don't get raped as much as women, but it's about power. Let's continue.
So like even more than like than both trans
Yeah,
men
I agree. Yeah.
and cis women. So really, if we're talking about anything, we should talk about trans people. But no, I like she and her more than he and him. But I dislike it because there is a lot of negative assumptions that come with it as well that are like difficult for me to work through. Because like you, I'm not very good in like social scenarios. So I spent all this time building this social mask to learn how to be a guy. And now I am not a guy anymore because I hated it. But like I learned how to do it. But now I have to like relearn how to interact with people in a way that is like authentic and not masking and positive. Because a lot of my interactions before were really negative. I was not a healthy guy.
What does he think doing what he's doing is? That's masking. He's physically masking. So maybe when he was you know, presenting as a male or a man, he was masking because he didn't feel authentically a man. But in the same token, you're masking. You're still masking. You're still masking because you're masking as a woman. This is like woman face. It gets really strange.
I was just a masculine figure.
I mean, you know, there's that stereotype of toxic masculinity. Maybe the fact that maybe the fact
cope, right?
Maybe it's so
they're professors.
Well, maybe a lot of guys are toxic because they just don't like the gender roles they're being put under.
I've actually heard that. I've heard that theorized, and I actually talked to somebody today that was talking about how men hold a lot of internal rage because of what did they say? Because of like all this trauma that they endure over their lives by people around them, from like their parents and like the women in their lives, to force them into this masculine role. And that's why they're so easily set off. And like quote unquote emasculation is just triggering their trauma. And I felt like that was really.
I think it also has to do more with fear. So, for example, if you look at the studying for bullies, studies that talk about bullying, person so you would think to yourself, who would suffer more, bullied or the person that's watching the bullying? And they found that the kids that watched the other kid get bullied were traumatized more because they were afraid that could be them. So the fear of being bullied kept them like, you know, it was more powerful emotion. But the kids who were bullied, yes, they had very negative consequences, but they didn't feel as bad as the kids that were watching the bullying.
Because it happened, you know, you don't have to be scared about being bullied. You know what's going to happen. You're going to get bullied. But everybody else, they have to like stay in line. And they're like, oh, if I do this one thing wrong, I'm going to die. Well, we have some people here in the server, myself included, who get thought spirals where like, it's like, oh, if I do this, I'm going to die. And I think a lot of people who utilize fear, and especially in like social scenarios, like men, you know, they utilize this fear of being different,
sound
of
is
being
breaking
gay,
up.
of being like other, of being feminine. They use this fear to like keep other men from doing these things. But anyways, I agree that I think toxic masculinity is a cope. And
well,
as a format, they're closeted.
Who's closeted?
Formaxer always says that extremely toxically masculine guys are just closeted.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to say that anywhere near the Middle East, right?
Okay, so do I agree with a lot of the men who have to always push how manly they are could possibly be gay? Yeah, they could possibly be gay. Yes. Are they trans though? I wouldn't say that. What these guys are doing in the manosphere, or that what he's saying is trans, what is it called? Just a moment. Transmaxing. Him transmaxing is basically what I see that is woman face. Like, I don't feel as though this is a true trans person. This is not, I don't feel that this male is a true trans woman. I don't feel that. I don't feel any vibe from this person that gives me that kind of inclination that that's what they are. to me, it is woman face. Like it's, oh, okay, being a man's too tough in my eyes, so let me go be a woman. But you don't have the full experience of a woman. So you don't have the tough parts of being a woman. You don't have, you don't bring life into the world. You're not going through labor, 20 and 30 and 40 hours of labor, and carrying a baby. You're just not going through those things. So what you're experiencing is basically you're dressing like a woman. You're not taking hormones. I don't think that person is taking hormones. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that person's actually had bottom surgery or anything like that. I think that person is just like, oh, okay, well, let me just present like this because I don't want to deal, with other men. And he did say something about toxic masculinity, which I fully understand, right? But let me get back to some of the parts I want. I'm trying to find where I really want to be at on this, and because some of it's so strange.
One thing being here a while back at a conversation, we were talking.
Hold on.
Conservatives will accept people like Blair White because of gender dysphoria, and like this is a line that has slid over the past 30 years. Weren't you telling me how 30 years ago, like there were no conservative trans people, there were no conservative gay people?
No, exactly. So I was telling Kat about my experience because I went.
The reason why people accept people like Blair White for being a trans woman is because Blair White didn't present as a full-fledged man in women's spaces trying to be a man but get benefits. She didn't do that. Okay? Blair White is the epitome of what trans woman is, right? So what I'm catching from this person is this person wants to wants to still function as a man, wants to have all the, the parts of a man, but wants to have, another man open his door or another man take care of him or whatever the case may be, right? That's what this is sounding like. Let's continue.
I went to an art school. I have a fine arts degree. I also worked on the first gay television show in Canada back in the 90s. So, back then, these things were kind of, there was the bubble of the village. Outside of that safe space village, gays, trans, anyone who was in that space, they did not leave. They kind of stuck to that area. So, and now things obviously have changed. But what's happened with the right is that they now accept gays and trans people, but they only if they fit a specific kind of mold.
The mold.
And I think that right now the right is trying.
So is he trying to get at the mold being actual trans women that look like women? Is he saying that we should accept trans men who look like men, present like men, act like men, are men, but just claim the title of being a woman? Because that's a no-go.
To demonize transmaxing, even though it accepts people like Blair White. And the only difference between someone that's, a so-called incel that's transmaxing versus Blair White who had dysphoria is that one was a apparently conscious choice, and the other one was just kind of how they felt about their identity. So, but the outcome is the same, right? So it's just like, oh, you think differently, so we're not going to accept you, but you think okay, so we're going to accept you.
I agree.
So this is the thing. I don't know where these dudes are getting at, but the reason why Blair White is accepted, like I said, reiterate, is Blair did everything she could to present female, right? if you want to have another category, make another category. If you don't want to be labeled as gay and you want to live your life in a very feminine way, you can do that. But stop taking the title of woman and what woman is and try to change what women, actual natural born women are, so that you can steal or take that title, knowing that is not what you are. That's not what you even want to be. But it's a jealousy issue. It seems like it's a jealousy issue with these guys. It seems like they're this is their come up, their get back, their grift onto women. You know what I'm saying? So like, and look, they have animosity to Blair, who is a legit transgender woman. Make that make sense.
Now, gentlemen, I actually have a question for you. Sure. I have heard it theorized that transmaxing is actually really like the real. I don't know how to phrase this. It's like the men's rights activism, like section of being trans, right? And because people want to claim like, oh, you just hate being a man so much, you just have to transition to female, right? And that's what the negative articles paint this as.
I think what the articles haven't really said is, for example, when I was in university, there were a lot of lesbians who dressed and acted
totally different
like men. They were like, if you saw them walking down the street, you could, with their crew.
The difference with those lesbians is they might have been like presenting very masculine, but they never said I'm a male. They weren't saying I'm a male. They're not trying to take the title of manhood. They're not trying to do that, or they weren't trying to do that. So that's a whole nother, you're talking a whole nother topic. They're not the same.
And their flannel shirts, and you couldn't tell them apart from anybody else. This is in the 90s, right? So this was happening a long time ago, and people today, they see those lesbians and they say, well, you hate men, right? So they're man-hating lesbians, right? So so now I think what's going to happen, I haven't heard this argument yet, but I think what's going to happen is a lot of, left-leaning places are going to say, well, they're going to take the trans-maxing individuals and say, oh, you're just like those angry feminist women who dress up as men, right? And who transition because they hate men. So that's the argument that's going to be thrown as well at anyone who transmax.
Yeah, they also like to throw the taking over women.
Again, let me reiterate: those women, feminists that dress in a masculine way and are in no way claiming to be men. They are in no way trying to take titles of manhood away from men. I've never heard them say that. So he's trying to compare what this dude that's transmaxing, or is he calling himself a transmaxer from the manosphere group, and trying to place that as being something concerning feminists who dress very masculine. They're not the same. They're not trying to take the title of a man. They're not trying to say, I'm a man, I'm taking your roles. They're not trying to do that. However, these men are.
Spaces argument.
Yeah, that's a. They're probably gonna use other arguments. Like, for example, today there was a rapist. He identified as male, and now now identifies as trans. So they will be put into a female prison. So it's kind of like, but yeah, person just raped 2 women. What? Like, now maybe he raped them so he would be thrown into the women's prison. Like, does anyone think about these things? Like, it's just ridiculous.
I think
that's one of the issues I have. How do you let a sexual predator who still has all of his bits and bobs, right, be put in a facility of women whom he just got done raping 2 women? That's why he's in prison. But you put him in prison population with other women? The insanity. the insanity and the fact that that person said that just during the arraignment or when he was being when he was getting his time from the judge, that's all of a sudden he's a woman. He wasn't a woman prior to that, but all of a sudden now he wants to be placed in a women's facility, and now he's a woman, claiming he's a woman. How is this fucking up? How is this? I don't get it. I don't know how this is allowable. Make another facility. Make a special facility for trans. I mean, if they're violating and it's a man and he still has his bits and bobs, make a whole nother. That's ridiculous to me.
Generally, you do have to go to the prison that is your legally assigned gender. So if this did just happen and they're trying to like pull the I'm trans card, because of their legal gender, they would be put into a men's prison likely.
No, they've been put into women's prison. It worked. I started identifying only after they were charged and basically going to court.
Well, regardless, that's what prison's for, right? They're sitting in there doing prison stuff.
But it's like, what about all the women that are in that prison? Like, this is just like, I don't know. Like
that part, I agree with him. Like, why would you put a violator, a man who violated women, and then put him in the prison to violate more women?
Right? I'll be the king there. So I'm going to go and, force myself on a couple women and then go to court and then identify as a woman and then get thrown into the women's prison. So I think that this could be intentional, or it could just be somebody trying to avoid going to a men's prison. So it's kind of one of those things we don't really know.
I think if the system in place is so bad for somebody to feel compulsed to go rape, I think you said 3 people in order to get thrown into.
I don't know. It was 2, but it was just a feed. Something came up in my Twitter feed today, so I saw the article.
My personal opinion is, if the system that we live in is that bad,
the dude is a sex offender. He's a sex offender. Why would you put him in the population with women which is a gender that he offended against? That's retarded.
The attractive option, right? That's an issue with the system that has corrupted the individual. I feel like we as a society like to put a lot of blame on the individual rather than the system that has crafted people to feel like that is like the necessary way. Like, I don't know.
I think it's a combination of things. Like, I think it's the system and the demographics pyramid is collapsing. So the system is creating a situation where there aren't enough partners for everybody. So that's problem number one. So then that creates a lot of people who are, kind of feel disenfranchised. So then they do bad things. And then the system lets them kind of find loopholes, and then they can continue to do bad things. So I think it's a combination of things.
You can only play the game that you're given, right?
Yeah. No, but the rules keep changing, the goalposts keep shifting.
Fucked over.
And that's the problem I have.
No, I said if you're given the material conditions to be fucked over, you're gonna get fucked over. It's like if you're running a simulation and you start in the collapse, and like in the beginning of the collapse, you're gonna go through the collapse. Like, there is no avoiding it. And I feel like that's what a lot of individuals get stuck in. Like, we are in the collapse of all these things that you talk about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, something that I wanted to ask you, when you saw Carl Benjamin, from Lotus Eaters, also known as Sargon of Akkad, and like Lauren Chen laughing at transmaxing, and and yet she had Blair White on her show. Like, what did you think in terms of, like, what was your reaction to that?
I think that media outlets are going to, I don't know how to phrase this. Okay, Blair White is a personality, and she's a well-known personality. So I don't really know how to phrase the, like, how do you feel that they had her on the show?
I'm not that's not. I'm not really like positioning it from Blair White's point of view. I'm talking about like them, their point of view, like from what you could see in their body language, their their thoughts on the subject. Like that's what I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah, I think that. I think a lot of people like to place the social expectations that they feel pressured by onto other people.
Now, throughout this whole interview, this person with the trans maxing channel keeps running back to Blair White, Blair White, Blair White, as if it's a jealousy issue that, that somehow conservatives and what have you accept Blair White. The reason why they accept Blair White is because Blair White, for one, is not preaching doing transition to children, okay? Leaving children alone and let them flow because children flow, right? Even Sandman was talking in his interview about how he was, he was very artsy as a young child, and some people took it as very feminine or that he might be gay or whatever, right? But kids do that. Kids flow back and forth. They are very gender neutral when it comes to life in general. They're creating themselves as a human being. They're building themselves, their foundation as a human being. So Blair White is basically only saying, and she is a transgender woman, she's only saying, listen, it's okay to be trans, right? But don't push it on children. Leave children alone and let them just let them naturally move through life. That's it. Anyways, there's more to this. Some stuff is very strange to me. Some things I do agree that's very ludicrous, that Sandman said, when it comes to why would you put a sex offender that's offended against women and raped women, why would you put them in a women's prison? I'm asking the same question. Why would you? Just because that person says they're trans, create another facility or a wing off of a facility that's meant just for them. These are people that have never transitioned. They've never had bottom surgery. They've never done any of that. This is an actual sex offender. Create a prison or a wing for a prison for them. Leave them out of women's prisons. Leave them away from women population in prison. Like that is, yeah, I agree with him on that. That's ludicrous. Anyways, I'm getting off here.